buses in the last couple days. Can you quote that again?
Sure, we paid last month for buses in January through the IU was $13,000, just for some field trips.
Yeah.
So, we've been trying to go through and, we have them sending us the costs ahead of booking them, trying to book the cheapest one that we can, going outside the IOU to look to see if we can find it any cheaper, but it is definitely a struggle.
We've had some reliability issues with some of the busing companies too, right?
Yeah, and sometimes we just flat out can't get them.
Right.
Like, we just cannot get them.
Can't get
And
them.
it's not
We've had
even-
some no-shows too.
Right, and we even, and not even wait until like, we have a Dorney Park one coming up that we're looking for now, and it's 2 months out, and we got cut down by 4 different companies today, so,
Oh, wow.
yeah, it's crazy. And then this also includes our second look for our healthcare. Our original first look was a 19.9% increase in our healthcare. It has come down to 15%. And I did request a third look because I think we're trending towards lower costs. So if we requested a third look, they went another month out looking at our costs because they go 2 years back. So if we can bring them another month forward.
And that's all in the 1100. It's split out in the.
It's split out
11,
in
12,
every, in all of
13,
them.
14,
Yeah, it goes
which is
through all of
all
them. It's
the
where any
personnel
salaries are, yeah.
And benefits
Yeah.
are in that section.
And I think that is the only difference. What we're waiting on, obviously, state budget, federal budget. We're waiting for our shared services and transportation from the IU for our special education students. And we're waiting to see what IDA and title funding we will receive for next year. So
And-
as soon as we get those.
And the increase that you're assuming is lower than the index, but not that much.
For,
The increase.
oh, yes, yes. So right now, yes, I'm sorry. So I got another form for you together, to make it a little more visual. And, so the Act One limit is 5.3, our adjusted Act One index is 6.1.
Stop, Justin, can you explain to people that are listening why everybody else can raise to 5.3 and we're allowed to raise to 6.1?
Sure. There's a formula, which is complicated, but it's a formula done by the state, which uses 2 different factors which are meant to associate to the community's wealth, or essentially tax revenue, both their property values and other tax revenue. And due to the trend in recent years, the districts whose trends are down qualify for an adjusted index or are permitted to raise taxes by a higher rate than other districts under the adjusted index. So it's basically accounting for the fact that you are losing that tax base and you have lost that tax base over the last few years.
And by trends, you mean the assessed value of the community.
Assessed value
which was-
community is primarily the place where it's likely hit Jenkintown.
Which in 23-24 was 284 million, and in 24-25 is 276 million, so we've lost 9.
And to be clear, most of this loss
8
assessment is
million.
in commercial buildings, not
Yes.
residential.
Correct.
I'd say the majority, yeah,
The
not
majority.
all.
The vast majority. I mean, there
Yeah.
are some in small, Beaver Hill has some assessment appeals, but there's a lot of them, but they're smaller, and I mean, cumulatively, they have an impact, but not like the commercial buildings.
Am I reading this right, with the assessed value, the drop in assessed value, and the resulting loss in revenue, the tax increase on here is barely covering that loss in revenue? Am I interpreting that right?
Yeah, I think what I don't have it written down, I think it was we'd have to increase 3.9% just to be equal to
Right, and
the
that would-
taxes we brought in last year.
And that wouldn't take into account
Any increases.
increased
in-
labor costs,
right,
increased
correct,
supplies,
correct.
increased costs,
Anything.
increase anything?
Anything, absolutely, would just bring us to the exact number that we brought in last year.
So Karen, this doesn't include, you were talking about, trying to put away money for the roof, it doesn't include.
That does not.
And also, last year was the first year historically Jenkintown ever qualified for an adjusted millage rate, which is not it's not a category that we could ever choose to be in. It's
Right.
a pretty serious impact across what we can offer. when people ask, can we have more of this, more of that, we are given an amount of money that we're allowed to raise taxes, and that's it.
How many other school districts got this in Montgomery County?
I don't know off the top of my head. I know there's probably at least two, maybe as many as four others.
Four others out of all the school districts in Montgomery County.
What's that?
Four others out of all the
Yes.
school districts in Montgomery County.
It could be more, I haven't looked specifically. I know historically there were two or three that qualified. The index has been around, that this is the law that put this in place was Special Session Act 1 of 2006. So since 2007, there have been indexes, so that's where we are now. But I do know there are some districts that have historically qualified for it, but not the majority in Montgomery County.
Oh,
Yeah, I can definitely look that up. for
There's
you.
an Excel sheet that lists
Yeah,
the
that
whole
has them on.
state,
Yeah.
Berks, Bucks, like
Mhm.
every county.
Yeah.
I can find it,
Yeah, it's on the,
so I do in my free time, I look at
it's on the
that.
Department of Education's website under their
Yeah.
Act 1
Yep.
resources, and it's,
It'll have it just.
the districts are listed by county. So you can look at the chunk of Montgomery County.
And anybody over 5.3 would be the adjusted.
And I think just to localize a lot of the loss here, I mean, it's really a big chunk of it is the result of the reassessed value of the Outback building, which we had been in well, I don't know if arbitration is the right word, but we had been in
Litigation.
litigation for years.
Over a decade?
Over,
Well,
almost my
that
entire
on and
tenure
off.
on the board.
6 years?
Six.
yes, the last iteration was 6 years. There was a prior filing of it that was eventually withdrawn by the owner. And then when it was sold, it was the appeal was refiled moving forward.
Right, and so all that information would be in board docs at this point, right? And then, the other piece, would it be some of Glansman for that? Or was that was that 2 years?
Yeah, well, that's.
I'm
in-
losing track of time.
No, right now, so that right now is in, interim, they just dropped that down.
Right.
Once they demolish the building, they drop their assessment down, because technically there is no building.
Right,
And then once they build up and get a certificate of occupancy, then they'll put it back on the rolls.
right.
the new
So
assessment.
right now, we're not collecting, I mean, we haven't been collecting any of the business tax
Correct, the mercantile
for,
tax.
the mercantile tax for a few years, but right now, we're also not collecting
Well,
any of
we
the.
still collect, but it just drops.
It
Yeah.
drops
Well,
to
it's
the
about
value
half,
of the land.
it went down by like half,
Yeah.
almost.
So, can we
yeah.
back up to that 6,000, the mercantile tax? Back in 2019, 2020, is that the 101,000
Yes.
mercantile tax? Is that the last year Glansman was
Yes.
here?
Yeah.
And so, even with your estimating, even with a new store reopening,
I'm just guesstimating at this point,
Only
it
half,
goes by,
50,000.
what they're selling, a
we
car
can't,
is a lot
we
different
can't
than.
compare
Yeah, we don't
car
know.
sales to
To,
milk.
to grocery.
Right.
So I don't know that we'll go back to
No, I
Glansman,
just-
yeah.
Conversation in the
Yeah.
community is about, we have a new store and it's gonna bring in
Right.
all this money, but it's
And it might.
relative to what was already there, it's,
Yeah.
and hopefully, it,
Right, I'm
hopefully it
hopeful that
exceeds
it,
the
absolutely,
expectation.
absolutely.
And hopefully it opens next year.
Yeah.
That's the other piece.
Right,
Shop
the
local.
sooner, right, the
Yeah.
sooner it gets up
Well,
and
and
running,
I
we'll
think-
get to occupancy.
Shop local.
The other thing that I just wanted to be clear that we had to pay back
Yeah.
those taxes that were a question. We didn't know how much that was gonna be until the final ruling. But we had saved money for that so that we could pay it back, so now
Right.
we're in the process of paying it back but then
Yeah, it's been
going
paid back,
forward,
the
it's
bulk of
reduced.
it's been paid back and we're in negotiations on the interest part of it. But there's no longer accruing interest.
But that's, we had no, there was nothing, we couldn't pay it back earlier or
No.
not collect it.
Right.
That wasn't
Right.
an option.
Right.
So I think
And also,
that's
we
a-
weren't at all responsible for the original assessment, nor were we responsible for anything in this. We were just kind of watching this whole thing unfold.
Well, we had our own assessment done, I mean, that's how we.
No,
Right.
but the taxes were based on the assessment that was
Yep.
done by the Board of Assessment.
Yeah.
You don't have the ability to reset that. The only way you can change it is by an appeal, but this was the owner's appeal, not the district's.
So if theoretically in the future, if that building had more tenants and things changed there, what kind,
You have a well, first, if there's improvements done to the building or the property, then what'll happen is the Board of Assessment will send out its assessor and set a new,
the county will reassess?
correct, the county will reassess. If you have a policy that allows the district to take assessment, to initiate assessment appeals, if upon a review of properties in the district, there are properties that would net a tax gain of $10,000 per year, but that is applied to both commercial and residential properties in accordance with Pennsylvania law. So it's been a few years since you've taken them, but you did take them several years ago. There were a few that were taken. But that would be the process if we would have the district's appraiser would go out, and technically they would do it on a book value. They would look at that type of market and see what goes up, because they don't have access to the financials for a private company. And that's how, and they would make that recommendation, and we would file, it would go through the same process.
And so what's the next steps for this budget? And it doesn't include any new stuff, like new teachers or anything like that?
No. So I still have to meet with, each department and principal, go through anything. Jill still, and I still have to sit down, and then we're still waiting on those information from the federal, the state, and,
So we'll
Ours,
talk about it
they're
again
very helpful.
in April and May, and it would be put up
Yeah,
for
my hope is
approval
we'll
in
get some
June.
stuff for April. I think the bulk of it we'll have in May,
Okay.
and we can do a pretty solid plan with a 5-year forecast
Okay.
attached to that.
Great.
And then just any tweaks we get between May and June before we would approve it.
Can we do like a presentation that we've done?
Absolutely,
Okay.
yeah, that's what we usually did in May, so.
Okay, Great.
I have one other question. So last year we our millage was 3.95, but we didn't raise to our adjusted
We did not.
what was that last year? What could we have gone to? It was
It was-
4.8?
I think it was close to 5, because we also had, last year had that.
We have the adjusted.
Adjusted last year
Yeah.
too.
I can look it up while we're talking.
No, my question is, last year, we could have raised taxes higher, cognizant of the
Yes.
impact of raising taxes year after year on everybody, so we made a really concerted effort to come in under that number. Essentially, you leave some money on the table there. This budget you're presenting is 5.72, which is not to our adjusted 6.1.
Correct.
So there's the potential that we're leaving money
yes.
on the table again,
Yes.
and I'm not sure where I personally feel about that this year, just with, listening to different wants and needs. I think we just need to keep talking about it, because,
And looking at where we can scale back.
Right, if we
And
wanna
we
go
can
lower, look
prioritize.
into where we scale back, if we wanna go lower and put away money for our capital projects and needs, then it may be scaling back, but adding on that extra to put that to our capital projects.
Yeah, cause none of this is going to fund balance.
No.
so, and our 1.2 fund balance, that, all of the 610 money we had to pay back,
That is already paid
that's
back,
already
yeah.
paid, so
Yeah, we had
we're,
assigned that, yeah,
Okay.
we moved that over last year.
okay.
That's good.
So then that's a reasonable fund balance to have at this
Yes.
point. We were
Yeah.
at points at 0, and this is,
Yeah,
we're back in a healthier position.
We are.
What was it, the percentage that we would have to raise just to get the same amount as last year?
It's 373,000, I wanna say it was 3.9%, I have to look in the last board meeting.
And to translate this like right into taxes, the average assessed value of the community is 150,000. Last year, the raises, the amount of taxes raised on a home like that would be $278, and this year would be $409. So that's a 147% increase on what the increase was last year.
And the answer, there are 5 districts in Montgomery County that qualify,
5.
based on my reading it off of my phone.
How many districts are there? How many districts
How
are
many
there in Montgomery
20,
County?
21, 20? How many
Um,
school districts?
So, 24.
I'll have to count.
20.
Well, there's also
Just keep
Bryn
talking, we
Mawr,
can
but
get
Bryn Mawr
answers.
doesn't really count,
Bryn
so.
Bryn
Bryn-
Mawr.
Sorry, Bryn Mawr. Bernathen, but that doesn't really count, but, they're not really
They don't
represented.
have a school.
They don't have a school yet.
I have a que-
But I think it's 20, maybe it's 21.
I feel like it's
It's
21,
21, but Bernathen brings us down to 20. I'm thinking we're IU, are we IU 24?
There's an odd number, there's an even number in the IU, which presented problems when Bernathen had a seat but no representative.
Yeah, yeah.
So I think it's,
I think
yeah.
it's 20, it was 21 and then
I
it
think
went
it's
down to
22
20.
with Bernathen, yeah, or maybe
Or-
that's what it is.
Okay.
No,
I have 22 plus including Bernathen.
yeah,
Oh, so
it's
it's
22 and it went to
22.
21 because we pulled
20
Bernathen
something.
from the IU.
Yeah.
board.
Again, the caveat being I'm doing it on my phone.
Yeah, because,
So of the 22 districts, 5 were granted this special dispensation.
yeah.
Lisa.
Yeah, so my question is, we had this drastic change based on reassessment for this budget. Does this mean for the, just thinking ahead to 25, 26, if theoretically there is no other drastic change, do we go back to sort of the normal rate? Like, does that get evaluated every year? So like, this is the moment it jumps up and then in theory, I don't know, whatever, like.
well, it's a look back rate, so it
It
could.
look, yeah,
it's-
it goes, but it is evaluated every year.
Yeah.
It's
Okay.
not a static, it's not, you're in and you're in forever. It's a question of every year.
It's dynamic.
Basically, it's your market value to personal income aid ratio is the term. It's not an easy thing for the layperson to do, but the state does it and goes through this process and
Well, I know that we've been talking about the inevitable place that we are where this litigation ended, right? And this significant change in the assessed value happened. Do we expect that, that this is sort of like a one big jump and that next year we won't have that another significant?
I can't say.
I know you're
Just to
not
be
a
clear,
fortune
they
teller,
filed
Justin,
another
but like.
appeal. I mean, there is now an appeal for this coming, for the taxes you'll levy in July 1. We're in court with them again.
Okay.
And there are some other commercial properties that are pending that are not as substantial as 610.
And 610 being the Outback Steakhouse.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
With a building.
Poor Outback, we're
Or
really
some of
taking
us
through.
are
It's not-
But
it's
some
not-
of us
younger
may
staff
have
They don't
it's
know.
out there.
Right, it's not, it's not one
That's
word.
true.
Depending on when you moved here.
Right.
The drawbridges?
Yes.
How-
Alright.
Exactly.
So,
And
well,
Katie, it was 2.67% just to go even to last year.
Can I,
And I'm gonna look up last year's.
yeah,
right
question.
now.
Well, I think, Lisa, that rate is given to us by the state. We have no say, and I think this is the highest we've seen it since
Yes.
I've been on the board,
Yes.
like by far. And
Yeah.
I'm assuming some of that also has to do with inflation,
Yeah.
you know, cost, the increase in the cost of goods in general, which is why it's it's up across, like even that 5.4 is the highest I think I've ever seen it across the state.
Oh, it definitely, I mean, it's, in the first few years, and that is an inflationary index. It's based
Right.
on the combination of the state average weekly wage and the employment cost index. They only have it going back to 2014-15, where it was 2.1, 1.9. And again, you'll remember those are years where inflation was historically.
Some years before that, though, just to remind people, we had pretty significant increases because the PSERS was transitioning to
Yes. Well,
more
those were but there were specific exceptions.
exceptions.
The
We had like
exceptions were
10%,
yeah.
I think, one year, if I remember my
There
taxes.
were exceptions, but in terms of the base index, in the beginning, there were some 4s, but this is as high as
It's
it's been.
been-
Can I ask one question? I feel like we've talked about, we get the Act One index, we should get it next year. Like, there's always been the current Act One that you're gonna work with, and then like projected by like a year or two, right?
They have projections, but
Yeah, they do projections, but they're fairly accurate, I guess. I mean, I'm not sure exactly how.
I'm
They're
just
not to
also
the-
wondering if we know the projected ones drop off from the 6.1, you know what I
well,
mean?
we won't know adjusted. They only knew the flat act one.
Okay, so say we see it's flat as 5.3, right?
Yes.
So if we can see what the projected are
Mhm.
as far out, because it would also be interesting to know what the potential is if they're fairly accurate about what we can do beyond this next school year.
Usually when I put in the 5-year forecast, I will look up the, I think it's goes out a couple of years, and I will include them in the 5-year forecast. There's an option that you can put in the projected Act One index, but not the adjusted, because honestly, I would have never anticipated that
And they're all
for
different.
the last 2 years.
If you look at the list,
Right.
Jenkintown's adjusted index is
Yeah,
different
it's a
than.
sliding
Right.
scale almost,
Right.
right?
It's based on that percentage,
Yeah.
and then you get a factor that is multiplied by the index.
So there are some Montgomery County schools adjusted Act One that are like 7.0 on that list or something.
Yeah, I think seven
Or-
is the highest.
yeah.
And just to be clear, this is a recognition that these school districts are in financial situation, so that it allows that school district to raise taxes on its own citizens in order to bring in more revenue. That's what the state is giving us permission, granting us the opportunity to do.
And what did Peasers go up?
Peasers went up a minuscule amount, and it's actually going down 0.1
Stop it.
Are you kidding me? From 35 to 34.9.
Oh.
Can you
So
just-
it's
I thought you meant it was going down 1%.
Wait, 0.1.
Oh,
Hey, Karen,
I got excited.
Karen, can you let everybody know what Peasers is?
Oh,
That's the retirement system, our Pennsylvania, public, I don't know, what the heck?
Public
Right,
school
so-
employees
employee
retirement system.
And about 10 or 15 years ago, that was 100% funded by the
At one point,
state.
yeah, districts were down to almost paying zero towards it because they were making out so well financially with investments, and then maybe
Read the
12
newspaper
years
if you
ago.
want to know more about that.
There were a few different things that happened
Yeah.
right at the same time. One of them was the state which tells you and mandates how much the districts had
Have
to
to
pay, basically gave the districts essentially a holiday from payment, which meant the state was paying, employees were paying, but school districts were paying very, very little, if anything. That was only for, I think, a couple of years, but one of the factors was, the markets go up, the returns are up, and then the markets go down, the returns go down, yet the annuity, what you owe, what the retirement system owes, doesn't change. It goes up because higher earners are retiring every year. So that was really what was driving it. It
So
wasn't,
over some period of years, we went from paying 0 or very little to about
35%.
35%, which
Per
was
employee.
some tens of thousands of dollars to over $1 million
Absolutely.
over that period of
And
time,
it's also
for our
a-
budget.
It's a mandate from the state.
Yeah.
Funded.
It's nothing we can do about it.
Said, yeah.
That was our problem 8 years ago or so.
Right.
Now, this is our new problem.
We're happy that
There's
it
always a
leveled
problem.
off at 35%, which
Yes.
is scary.
Alright,
And I did look for last year, our Act One index was 4.1, our adjusted index was 4.8, and we came in at 3.95.
And Karen, can you just explain that when we hire a new staff member, let's just say, I don't know, even you could just go from a starting step one, which isn't really the case because personnel and staffing has been down across the state, so we're, a lot of times we're not getting first step bachelor's individuals, but if it was a first step bachelor's individual, it's not the $50,000 or the $52,000 with Peasers and
Right, we have-
benefits,
right,
it would cost
right.
about what?
So Peasers is 35%, we get half back, so that's 17.5. Then we have health insurance, employees.
So say
generally
it's
pay-
full family with Peasers all in for $50,000 salary.
You're probably, you have to budget in the 50,000 plus another probably 70% to cover Peasers, 60% to cover Peasers and healthcare.
So it's really about 80,000 is what you're budgeting for like a step one employee.
Oh, yeah, easy, yeah. Yeah.
so more to come, I guess on that.
So there's a process now for the public, like this is what, like one of our first looks at this budget.
This is our
right?
second.
It's our second,
Or second,
second
excuse me,
grade.
but-
We'll see what, if we get new information, towards going into April, we'll give you any updates, and then May, we're hoping to have the bulk of any information that we'll need to move forward. May, we'll present it, we'll do a 5-year plan, we'll have it on display, and in June, we can still make changes if we get new information between May and June, but it'll be on display, and then in June, we would, approve it.
And just, can I ask you to just, because this kind of came up in my meeting earlier too, is that, average cost for an out-of-district placement student?
I would, depends where they're at.
Just give me a range, just give me a
I would say
range.
probably
60, 70.
between 60 and 70 plus transportation.
60, 70 to 90 plus transportation.
Yeah.
And then transportation
Plus
is gonna be 30?
transportation,
Or depending
50
on
to
child
60.
needs support.
And then if they have any type of, an aid or an RBT with them, would be another 30,000.
So what's all of that together? I lost count.
I would say in between, depending on what services they have, anywhere from 60 if we don't have to transport them to 150 if we do.
For one student.
And we have to pay that, there's no.
Right.
Correct.
The Act One projections from the fall, show, at the moment, 4%, 3.6%, 3.2%, 3.1% over the next several years. Now, the projections from 2021 had the index around, I think it was 3.6% this year. So they're not, it was-
They're not accurate.
yeah, they, well, no one, I think, in 2021 saw the inflation that we realized over the last couple of years, so. Probably should.
Alright. Anything else? So there was no voting for that, that was just.
Nope, just a presentation.
Okay, liaison reports. Katie, wanna start? You have anything?
No, I'm not prepared.
Are you gonna be prepared? Do you want me to come back to you?
Come back to me.
I'm gonna start with the other end. Nate.
It was a busy March. I mean, so many things happened. I mean, we had the skate.
For what? For HSA?
For HSA, excuse me, I should say HSA. Skate night, we had Lady Drake's meeting, we had elementary school concert, we had math night, and we just had so many things going on. Red and Blue Fair meeting, getting us ready for the spring. But then we have an HSA meeting, I think, next month, and we'll be getting ready for future plans. That's it. Mary
Thank-
Beth.
We had a safety committee meeting today. Michelle finished her mandatory 7-hour training. She did an extra training for new staff. And Carolyn applied for the safety grant and Michelle applied for the mental health grant.
What are those?
The safety grant was, we put in for some new readers, for the doors, for, new walkie-talkies. It was $30,000.
That's a state grant.
Meritorious, PCCD.
And then what's the mental health?
It's just more mental health support, RBT, BCBA support.
Would that be supporting people you already have or potentially new?
It depends.
It depends. I mean, I think that, we wanna get, more of our aides trained, with, RBT training. Sometimes when we hire, we contract services out, we have to remember that it is for a short period of time, it's not going to, they don't continue to give that to us. So that, if we contract services outside and then the funding goes away the next year, it falls on us
Yep.
to absorb
Okay.
those costs. So we try not to put personnel into grants because then we're left with picking that up after the fact. So, we talked about it today and we're going to see and determine if our current staff is, some more of our administrative assistants our instructional assistants are interested in having some training for behavior training.
I think we all know what's going on with the borough.
Nancy.
Yes. JEF, we actually got a meeting, tomorrow night, but February, we have, taken over, general management of the support our students, SOS. So, we're keeping track of requests. We've clarified, how we're gonna manage that and how requests come in. They have to go through a principal, before, and be approved before, any funds are allocated. We're also trying to revitalize our corporate sponsorship program, which the pandemic kind of killed. So we want to, we've been Approved to advertise corporate sponsors at the Red and Blue Fair and Color Day. AM Fund, which is a American Fundraising Foundation. They have released their grant, their 2024 Golden Pair Grant Program. That is unrestricted funds. Grants can be anywhere from $1,000 to $25,000. So we applied for it before. We didn't get it the last time, so we're going to apply for it again because it's rare to get foundation money for unrestricted funds. Usually it has to be attached to a specific project or a specific area, but with the AM Fund it doesn't. So we're going to be resubmitting. We're also looking at participating in a fundraising program that they have, which is a travel program, so stay tuned for that. We're looking to see if any of our student ambassadors want to be involved in the advocacy, in PSBA's Advocacy Day. We also have information about the Target Circle grant. I think it's matching funds, so Chrissy Levy is exploring more information about that.
So the IU, there's been several meetings. They completed their audit and we heard about that. But one thing of note, my understanding is that, it falls in line with what we were talking about today with regard to the budget. One of the other budget concerns that is coming up for the districts is the voucher situation. And so my understanding is that every district in Chester County, several in Delaware County, I know that Norristown passed something unanimously. Pottstown was voting this month on passing a resolution. They were asking the districts to consider passing a resolution with regard to our stance on school vouchers. And, I do have a sample resolution that was written, that other districts are using. I can print it, or, send it if you guys wanna review it, if that's a topic that we wanna address.
What does the resolution say exactly?
It's 2 pages long,
Okay.
I mean, I can read it.
Yeah,
In a nutshell,
Yeah.
it says, that the voucher, the push for vouchers is something that takes money away from the districts and being able to equitably fund, that there are already pre-existing programs that exist for low-income students to be able to access a private school as necessary, and so the voucher program is maybe being touted as something that will increase equity for people without means to be able to make those choices, but that those programs exist, expressly the tax credit opportunity scholarship, the EITC and the OSTC programs. And so they're basically asking the districts to take a stance to, I'll read you the gist of the ad, that they are calling on Governor Shapiro and the General Assembly to work together to quickly enact legislation to provide specific adequate funding targets for public schools and a timeline for the implementation, since failure to do so could result in further litigation and taxpayer expense, which again, is something we talked about just tonight. Resolve that the district is opposed to any voucher proposal that allows public funds to support non-public school scholarships before the Commonwealth has provided for a constitutionally adequate level of funding for all public schools. And finally, that the districts are opposed to any voucher proposals that divert additional public funds away from public education, and as opposed to any voucher proposal that lacks robust academic and fiscal accountability. And one of the other things that, and we talked about it at the legislative breakfast last year, and I know that we're scheduled to go, I'm excited to go this year. Again, I thought that was really helpful. They were talking about, basically the fact that there is no, like this, in the curriculum conversations, that none of that exists. it's just voucher money that goes to a school and there's really no oversight. And it's diverting the money away from the public schools in order to do so. So that's really the increased conversation. I know that they're talking about it at the level, like in the legislative breakfast, if those of you that are watching don't know, you know that.
We did pass the resolution on charter school reform a few years ago. So we're one of the close to 500 districts in the state that passed that resolution.
And just the resolution is kind of just a statement of somebody that the board supports or not. There's no, it's not, you can't, it just says something, it doesn't do anything.
Right.
Prevent us from having action.
Right, but it's a powerful statement to say that every district in Chester County and that, that there's a move for all of the districts to be talking about this. So if the people that are watching or whatever aren't familiar, they do this legislative breakfast, you heard us mention it. And what that is an opportunity for representatives from all of the school districts to come together with the legal, with the legislative representatives, thank you, it's been a very long week for me. And we have the opportunity to spend time and talk about the issues that impact the districts and what the government, what the House and what they can do to be able to support us. So it's an opportunity for us to be able to advocate for things like, hey, this budget stuff is really tough on us. They have speakers, and one of the speakers last year, they were talking about mental health issues and all sorts of different things that are impacting schools now. Vouchers is part of that. So I don't know. I will forward this particular email from a fellow board member from the MCIU to you guys if you want to read the draft resolution that they were. This is a representative from Pottstown District, so I'll do that for you guys now.
Thank you.
Sure.
And we would put that on a future agenda if we wanted to.
Oh, and also, there's a golf outing. The MCIU is having a golf outing. I lost the date when I pulled up this one. But it is coming up in April. If you're interested, we'll have another meeting before that and I'll mention it again. Thank you. Yeah.
Eastern, we had our monthly meeting last Wednesday. Things are really good. One of our Jenkintown seniors is going to the state Skills USA competition first week in April, Carolyn Kime, for t-shirt design. So we're excited about that. If she moves forward in that competition, she could go to nationals in Atlanta over the summer. And if you get a chance to visit Eastern's website, our senior Celia DeFazio has a feature for Women's History Month on the website, and that's what's going on there.
Can I say something else
Yes,
about
go ahead.
Eastern? I just, as a theater parent who is very tired from being at all of the Alice by Heart shows last week, I thought it was really touching that
The executive
the
director.
executive director of Eastern, because there were several Eastern students that were in that show, just the fact that they showed up, they were like, oh, we're so excited to see this one and that one, and the things that they do outside of Eastern. I thought that the kids were so excited. I was with them backstage a little bit. They're just, so excited that the people that they know and love from Eastern came to see the show. And for the record, the teachers here also came to see the show.
Yes.
And I know just the kids feel very supported by their teachers and very, loved and supported by them when they came to do that. So, just take a second to thank everybody for that.
Can I pile on the Eastern love?
Yeah.
No, and almost advertise, let me know, Carolyn, if I'm talking out of turn here, but we signed my fifth grader up for a summer
YMCA,
class
yeah.
at Eastern.
Okay.
I think it's cooking.
Yeah.
And there are a whole bunch of them on there that, just as a family, we weren't aware of until this year. And they're pretty cool. And I think most of them are half-day programs for a week or two.
And it's at the Willow Grove YMCA.
Yeah, a lot of them they do at the Willow Grove YMCA. Some of them are at Eastern. So I would just encourage you to check it out if you're looking for things to do for your kids this summer.
Can we send a message to the parent community? Can we do that?
Oh,
I have to defer to Eastern on that. That's just me as a parent, actually.
I mean,
But,
for
yeah,
our,
yeah, absolutely.
just
We
to tell
I can
them
put
that
that
that's
in,
an option.
I can put that in
Put
the
it in
newsletter.
the newsletter, great, perfect.
Yeah, it's cool.
Katie, or do you have anything?
Yes, I'm
She's
prepared
ready
now. reported this out. We had a wellness meeting that Michelle looped me in. It was February 26th, so I don't think I would have reported this out. And the agenda, this Smile program was being brought back into the school district. Aldersgate was doing a vaping program. There was more community engagement offerings surrounding mental health by Nearmont. I think Mr. Roller talked about that the other week. And also they had talked about more healthy options in the cafeteria. The chef is trying to offer some new items. So I don't know, Michelle, if you wanted to expand on those.
No, that's good. I mean, some of the items that Chef was trying to do is that on the day that he was trying chickpea salad and pineapple salsa for the tacos, and he also said that there's really good participation with our breakfast program, especially at the elementary school. About 130 students daily are getting breakfast, and he's really trying to bring more fruit options to breakfast, so bringing in strawberries and different things like that.
Great, thank you. Anything else? All right, so comments from members of the public and staff on non-agenda items. Again, 3 minutes, and please state your name and address.
Hey guys, it's me again, Nora McCluskey, 253 Washington Lane. So I wrote this kind of like a picture. It's Friday night. You're relaxing after a long work week, and your kid wanders over and tells you that his class was talked to about a threat made by another student to bring a gun to school. You're absolutely blindsided. There was no email, no letter, nothing communicated to you about a threat. You asked what was said in the conversation, and the takeaway was, it's over. Don't talk about it, or it won't go away. Cool. Now I know kids are unreliable sources of information, so I emailed Dr. Donkey to get clarity regarding what happened. He did respond quickly and was helpful in explaining what happened. So the threat was made by another student after school hours to bring a gun to the playground. The police responded and determined there was no imminent danger. The superintendent and admin were made aware of the situation and were told not to send out a communication by Chief Scott. This is where my question comes about patterns in communication and who makes the call. I'm reminded of another incident in which a 6th grader made a threat. This threat was made during school hours, and there was no communication to the families, even though several worried students had talked to several staff members that day. There's a clear pattern of lack of communication and transparency when it comes to threats made by students on school grounds. While the school playground is shared space between the borough, that comes with a blurred line when it comes to responsibility of communication regarding incidents such as this. Chief Scott believed that communication was not necessary. I lost my place. Sorry. Oh, it was not necessary because it took place after school hours, and the threat was to bring a weapon to school grounds after hours instead of during. If this was a threat made literally anywhere else in the town, I could understand the lack of communication, but this goes beyond just the kids present. It being at the school involves a space all of our kids spend 35 hours a week at. So I guess the best solution was to just tell the kids it's taken care of, don't talk about it, but if you do, make sure you do with your parents who have absolutely no context regarding said incident. In both these instances, we're relying on elementary students to control the narrative and the only information that comes home. I don't know about all of you, but I can't say that my 12-year-old is the most reliable source for the intel. Why are we thinking that this is a good idea? There have been multiple incidences like this in the last few years with communication/transparency ball has been dropped down a deep dark hole, never to be seen again. It does nothing but sow distrust in the administration when it comes to the safety of our kids and their ability to be transparent about incidences where threats to safety are concerned. If the incident happens on school grounds, who definitively makes the call? Chief Scott advised no communication, but is the school not allowed to make that call on their own as it is school property with JSD students involved? The school board policies do not have a clear answer, as far as I can tell. The notified police department, but it doesn't say anything about who makes the call on communication.
Thank you.
Yep.
Hi, Meredith Shields, I live at 205 Broadman. My specific question is, what is the issue with retaining school psychologists? As I understand, we've had 3 resign in the past year. An intern is currently occupying the position in the elementary school, I assume while supervised by the middle school, high school psychologist, which, is that legal? I don't even know if that's, I mean, how many students can you supervise as an intern? And I understand that the middle school psychologist is leaving soon, also resigned. How are IEPs and 504s being managed? How are the students' mental health needs being met? That was just addressed at the meeting that we had with Dr. Takas with curriculum planning, with addressing not just the curriculum, but extracurriculars, mental health issues and needs. I don't see how any needs are being met of any students if we can't retain the school psychologist. And generally, what is the overriding issue with retaining teachers and staff at this district? There seem to have been a significant number of resignations, some of very senior staff, and some very last minute. The school district should have no issue retaining experienced staff. It's small, it's suburban, and teachers are well paid. What is the problem? I would welcome any response from anyone that has any idea why we can't keep teachers here. Why are they unhappy here? They get paid more money than I do.
Thank you.
Anthony McCluskey, 253 Washington Lane. I stand before you again today to express in greater detail a concern that affects the very foundation of our educational system, the absence of a dedicated human resources function within our school district. This issue isn't merely administrative. It's about fairness, transparency, and the well-being of our educators. Our current system, where teachers must address their grievances or concerns directly to the superintendent, who may be the subject of these concerns, poses a stark conflict of interest. It undermines the principles of fairness and impartiality that are fundamental to any reputable institution. How can we expect genuine resolution or impartiality in such a framework? Without a dedicated HR professional, we are jeopardizing our teachers' ability to work in an environment where their concerns can be heard and addressed impartially. An external firm, no matter how competent, cannot replace the nuanced understanding and immediate presence of an in-house HR function that is attuned to our district's dynamics and specific needs. An HR function plays a vital role in ensuring that employee grievances are managed fairly, offering a confidential and neutral platform for raising and resolving issues, and moreover, HR is instrumental in implementing strategic staffing, professional development, performance management, and ensuring compliance with labor laws and educational standards. Functions too crucial to be outsourced or diluted. HR would establish pay bands and standards to help ensure that we have the right people serving in the right roles instead of vanity roles like an admin assistant who gets paid more than an executive assistant at a Fortune 500. HR could work to ensure that the proper levels of special education staff and non-teaching aides are there for the educators in our district. In an email response to my last statement, Dr. O'Brien used the phrase, "in order to benefit from efficiencies created by staff attrition," which seems like a really kind way of making the fact that our superintendent is driving valuable staff out of our district sound like it's a good thing. How many principals have we seen in the last 4 years? How many teachers have left? At what point does this level of turnover and employee dissatisfaction call for administrative oversight of our superintendent? We don't know because we don't have an HR professional to ask. By not providing a structured in-house HR professional, we risk continuing to demoralize our educators, as shown by the countless departures seen in the last several years, potentially negatively affecting our children's education. Teachers entrusted with the noble task of shaping the future generations deserve a work environment that respects their rights, hears their concerns, and fosters their growth. I urge the board to consider reorganizing our administrative staff to provide an HR professional and provide our teachers with the support they actually need to succeed. It is an investment in our educators' well-being, our children's future, and the integrity of our educational system.
Thank you.
Seeing no further comments, we'll close the, comments, the last comment section. Do you wanna talk about the, school psychology?
Yeah, I can just say that we're welcoming Pat Jer back. She was a school psychologist here for a very long time. She went to work elsewhere to seek employment for potential advancement, and she made the determination that she would like to come back here, and so she starts April 2nd, and we're thrilled to have her back.
Chief, did you wanna address the?
So I am aware of the incident that occurred. This is a unique community, and obviously there's not many playgrounds within the community. So a playground was where the incident occurred. It was an isolated incident involving 3 juvenile females. Confrontation occurred, and that confrontation escalated a little bit, and I'll say it that way, and that's the best way to describe it. The person who was involved in it was a little emotional, and they left and then came back with, I guess, a feeling that they needed to show that they were not afraid of how they were being treated by the people that were involved. And they made a comment. They didn't know that comment has consequences. In that comment, that was it. There was no, based on our threat assessment, there was no access to any weapons, there was no weapons involved, and actually, the simulated thing was a banana. So the reality of this is that it's been blown out of proportion, based on, Whisper Down the Lane and all the different things. We have a collaborative effort with the school district. We wanna make sure that everybody is safe. There was no threat to the school community in any way, shape, or form. There was no threat to any particular class or any other people involved in the students in the school. This was an isolated incident between 3 individuals, and it was bad behavior on all 3. That's the best way to describe it. They were not treating each other with respect, and as a result, someone got upset and got emotional and said something they shouldn't have said. And as a result, we've made sure that we help those people involved to know that that's not good ways to resolve their conflicts. Working with you in the school district, we always want to work to have that support to make sure that we address these issues so that the kids can learn from these things. We're not going to blow it out of proportion and have to put out a community alert to make people think that something happened that really didn't happen, that was a big threat. It was not a big threat. It was an isolated incident involving 3 individuals who were probably emotional, and they made comments that they shouldn't say. Unfortunately, right now in society, that's something that happens regularly. Because of what they see on TV, what they see in society, they make comments that they know they shouldn't, but there's no accountability of it. So we deal with it the best we can. We make a logical decision. We do our threat assessments. We make sure that we're going to have parental involvement, which we had tremendous parental involvement in this incident, and we make the decision on whether we're going to escalate this. And there was no reason to escalate this in any way, shape, or form. So,
Can I ask you a question?
sure.
So you answered it a little at the end there, just to clarify, and I don't know what you can say or not say, but, this was brought to your attention, and you guys, you guys as a police department went out and met with the families, as the part that.
We identified everybody that was involved.
Okay,
The people who reported the incident were not involved in the incident. They were bystanders. They did not know the particulars of the incident. They just heard the comment. So then it escalated from there. We were contacted, we investigated, we talked to the person involved that was feeling the confrontation. We talked to the other 2 who were involved in the incident and their parents. And then we talked to the other people and explained to them what we were doing with it. So it was not one of those situations where there was any immediate threat to the community or immediate threat to the school.
and that happened fairly quickly.
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
I just have a question. There was an incident on the playground, I think like last year or maybe the year before, and Dr. Yankee sent out a really quick email that was, I'm sure some of you heard about the incident yesterday on the playground. We, investigated it, and there was no credible threat. It was like really short and to the point, and I was really comforted by that. What is your feeling on those kinds of communications?
So I think that it's going to be a case-by-case basis, and I think that that's the most important thing here. We can't automatically just think that a community alert is going to be the way to deal with everything. Because worst of all, And best of all, we have a very small community. The tough part about that is the long-lasting effects when you make a community alert like that can affect an individual. Imagine how that affects that poor little kid who's been now identified, because everybody's gonna know who he is or her, whoever it may be, in a situation.
I mean, I still don't know who was involved in that incident, but I know that
But-
the kid was talking about something, and then I was like, okay, well, it's
Yeah, most of them are handled very well. We have to really work together, and I think that's the best part about this, is that, our relationship has been really foundational in the last 2 years. Working with you as the school board, working with all the administrative staff, and working with, Dr. Takis, this is the way it should be in Jenkintown. It should be a collaborative effort. It shouldn't be, we just magically gonna tell everybody about these little incidents. Because what that does is it creates this speculation issue. And it then magnifies things that may not need to be magnified.
it seems like we're getting
Well-
speculation.
Well, without, I know, and I would say that, I mean, if the kids are gonna hear about it in the classroom, then we probably have to have share with parents so that they know what's going on. But-
I totally understand that. This incident involved my decision. It
Yeah.
was not the school district's decision.
Yeah.
We had a conversation, myself and the administration, about who would put out anything, and I felt that it was not escalated to the incident, to a position that it needed to be a community notification. I can't, we have to balance this out to also address behaviors so that kids learn not to act that way this way. They have to be able to control things, have to control their emotions, and be able to resolve their conflicts better. So that's.
No, I totally agree with
Yeah.
everything you're saying, and I also think that, when we've had these incidents in the past, we have
think
struggled,
we-
we've
we-
struggled with what to communicate and when, without knowing all the
Yes,
details, and.
because it is,
because
it's a
kids
small
involved.
community,
Yeah.
and the speculations then escalate, and we try and put all the facts we can put out, because we are bound by confidentiality. We are dealing with juveniles. There is such a high level of confidentiality with regards to this, and unfortunately, in a small community, that confidentiality goes out the window sometimes. Well, that's not fair to the individuals that are involved in this, so we really have to be diligent about that confidentiality. We will communicate going forward all the time at the best possible way we can.
Yeah, I would like to err on the side of more communication because we've been through it before. And we know that what happens in the absence of any communication is this whirlwind of speculation of things that may or may not be true, or may or may not
I'm
be
in the middle of
accurate.
speculation
I know.
right now. And the amount of speculation and attack on my character is reprehensible. And I can tell you that it's an emotional situation, and I get it. But the fact that some people would attack my character when they have no idea of what I'm trying to do, what I've been assigned to do in my position, it's just reprehensible. I understand that, and I'm working through that, and working to make sure that our relationships and we communicate the best we can. But sometimes it's to err on the caution of confidentiality, and Justin would know. We do not want to leave out any information that could cause someone to then, the liability involved in violating that confidentiality is very severe.
Chief, I want to thank you for being so conscious of the effect that this has on these kids. It's a rare thing, I think, that that you took that moment to pause and breathe and to let the kids make those adjustments. But I do think that the issue here is not so much the way that was handled, but I think it is the fact that kids are coming home saying that they were told not to talk about it. So I don't even know if it's a you issue so much for us at the moment as it is a how did our kids come away with that understanding. I mean, I don't have a kid.
It's all how the message is received,
Right.
so
But what are
maybe
we doing to?
we can work better at that
to redirect
communication.
that
That's not a problem, that's something that I think is important, and I think the fact that we have good collaborative relationships right now, we can work to be better at that. I'm not saying I'm perfect, no one's perfect, but in this situation, we did not think it was necessary to alert the public.
So then can I ask, Dr. Takis and Dr. Yonke, what was the message that we put out to the kids and where we think they misinterpreted it?
I'm gonna have Dr. Yonke, because I didn't put any message out to the children, but yes, please.
Thank you, Chief.
Thank you.
Thanks, Chief.
Thank you, Chief. Yeah, so Friday morning, students were still talking about it, and they were talking about it in a, I wouldn't say threatening, but an aggressive way. And to Chief Scott's point, the students made mistakes, and Mrs. Askin and I spoke to her homeroom about it. Never mentioned the student's name. I said, we all know who we're talking about, we know what happened on Wednesday night. The part about not talking about it was, this has been handled. The police have handled it, this is done, there was no credible threat, everyone is safe. You do not need to talk about this with each other, is what we said. I said, but please go home and talk to your parents about it. If they have questions, reach out. And many parents did reach out to me. But it was not a, we don't want anybody to know about it. It was, when the student returns to class, this is done. We don't keep it going. It's just still a gossipy part of it. But the point I wanted the students to get is that they were safe. Because students were talking about they felt unsafe. Some students were saying, well, we'll take care of it when they come back in, and it wasn't warranted. And it was just sixth grade boys and girls expanding on something they really didn't know a lot about. So Mrs. Askin and I spoke to the class together and said just that. This is done, we've handled it. You do not need to discuss it with each other. If you have questions, talk to your parents. You can come, we said, come talk to me, come talk to Mrs. Askin. But this is it. We don't want this dialogue to continue because there's no incredible threat. And that was the conversation we had. And it lasted less than 3 minutes.
If I might make a recommendation,
Yes.
I think it could be important when you're sending children home with that kind of message, it's okay to talk to your parents about this. It might be a good follow-up to those parents, just to give them a heads up,
Okay.
your child. I think if you do that, this is probably a non-issue.
Right, okay.
It sounds that way, so maybe that's
No,
a
and I appreciate what, it's, cause as we've been through this every time, everybody wants to know the details, and they wanna know the real specific details, and they wanna know what
Right, which
happens
we'll never
after,
know.
and the next thing, and we can't share that. And I think the most important thing is all these kids feel supported, the kid who felt like this was something they had to say, the kids they said it to, the kids who heard about it, and that is a difficult balance, I understand, but I do think if we're sending them home with information, we should be sending them home, we should be
I agree.
letting
That's
their
good.
parents know it's coming. No, but comments are
That's good.
closed, so we're gonna move
Right.
on.
Can I ask a follow-up?
Yeah, no, you go. But public comments are closed.
All that aside, moving forward, is there thought to any work to be done with this class? I'm sort of looking at you, like a little bit at you too, Michelle, like, is there the possibility to do any work with this class about, especially if they're not moving on? I mean, today's Monday, so I don't know what it was like in there today, whether this
I
issue
spoke
is
to all
resolved and
three
it's done?
Sixth grade teachers, they didn't hear a word about it.
Okay, so maybe without sort of pulling this back up, is there general work to be done or an opportunity to talk to kids about the impact of, making sure that people feel safe in their classroom environment in general and the impact of words? Like, is there is the guidance counselor to be able to sort of come in and do ongoing work as a whole? Like, can we just sort of think about supporting them as a whole moving forward in some way that's not necessarily like we're going to revisit this incident, but incident specific, but just this kid probably didn't know the impact of those words. So how do we educate and support the kids so that this kind of stuff may not happen again in a way that escalates to the point that somebody's contacting the police? Is there opportunity for
Yeah,
that?
I mean, the guidance counselor can definitely do opportunities. Every class they do morning meeting. That's a time to come together as a community, as a group of kids. We have the Second Step program, which is all about social and emotional appropriate behavior, expected behavior, unexpected behavior. So absolutely.
Yeah, they may not have had a learning opportunity to know, don't yell fire in a theater. Don't say that you have a gun when you have a banana, that kind of stuff.
If there's a positive that came out of this, it was that a student not involved in the incident did something right and contacted the police. I think that
That
should be
too.
recognized. I mean, that student made a smart choice. So somewhere along the line, the students have learned, if I feel unsafe, here's what I do. And I think that was the right choice to do that as well.
Yeah. Cool, thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Can I
So
just-
we're going, go ahead.
Can I just make one, comment? You're good. Just a reminder that the school climate survey, we have open till Friday, which is open to the public and staff of Jenkintown, and we would, and students, and we would encourage 100% participation. I know we've heard some feedback. That is a very good method for us to get direct information from our, any employee of the district, student of the district, or person living within the district. And so we have until Friday. So I think that's helpful.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So the meeting is adjourned. We're gonna go into executive session for informational items and personnel. Thank you.
Thank you.